I slept with a big shot. A condom was used. Afraid it might not be safe enough. I also took baby abortion pills in front of the big shot. 3 months later, I had morning sickness. The big shot's eyes turned red with anger. Which wild man was it? Shortly before or after me? After the alumni gathering used for showing off ended, I slept with Wesley. He seemed to have been drugged. His whole body was flushed, and his eyes looking at me were full of affection. He used to be a cold and aloof academic god. Now he is a big shot. How could I resist his gaze? Half reluctantly and half willingly, I opened a room with him. In those dozen or so seconds in the elevator, I thought carefully. Wesley comes from a good background. He was diligent in studying at school and hardworking at work. He is a hardworking person and has no time for promiscuity. He should be quite clean. His performance really satisfied me, whether it was the initial shyness or the growing excellence. In this kind of one-night relationship, I was most afraid of having a child. A condom was used. Afraid it might not be safe enough. After waking up, I ordered contraceptive pills. Are you feeling unwell somewhere? What medicine are you taking? Wesley put on his clothes and was once again neatly dressed. He saw the words on the medicine box, was silent for a while, and stopped me. It was all done properly throughout. There won't be an accident. It's not 100% certain. Your guarantee is useless. Probably because we had slept together. The filter of the big shot was not so strong anymore. I bluntly retorted at him, quickly threw the pill into my mouth and swallowed it with a sip of water. Wesley had no time to stop me. He was even angry. With a stern face, he left in a huff. What was he angry about? Originally, I also wanted to talk to him about what our relationship was now. With his attitude, I'm not shameless. It's just a one-night stand for adults. I'm popular. Why should I rush to ask him to take responsibility? Anyway, that night was very comfortable. After figuring it out, I put it behind me. Our companies are in the same building, but Wesley is so cold. I also have some pride. Many times when we met, we didn't even exchange more greetings and didn't become more familiar. It was Monday again. The boss called me to the office. Looking at me twice, she teased, "Lynn, are you in a relationship? You look so good." My boss is a non-marriage advocate, but her boyfriends are constantly changing. An experienced person can see through me at a glance. Since I was seen through, I simply admitted it. I just started dating. Men are just seasonings. Career is the main line. Let's go on a business trip. After flying to another place and staying there for nearly 2 months, in the middle, Wesley sent me messages. His words seemed too cold and pretentious. I dealt with them perfunctorily. Coincidentally, as soon as I entered the building, I saw Wesley. He was wearing a black shirt. His suit pants showed his waistline. Leaning there, many people kept looking at him. Wesley walked straight towards me. "Have you had breakfast? Are you going to treat me?" I looked at him calmly. A faint voice came from the side. "Isn't this Wesley from next door? Are you also interested in our Lynn?" My boss, like a ghost, came over, obviously full of hostility. "It's too late. Our Lynn is in a relationship." She even replied to her boyfriend's messages during the business trip. Wesley's always calm eyes were full of shock, looking at me with a pitiful look, as if asking if it was true, greatly satisfying my vanity. "Who told you to be so cold to me? After sleeping together, you still showed me an unfriendly face." So I didn't refute it. I nodded at him and left. My boss was even happier than me. It's really a relief. The old dog Xiao from next door snatched Wesley and showed off to me for a long time. Who knew we could get back at him from here? My boss hooked my shoulder, originally just joking. Looking at Wesley's reaction, he really has feelings for you. I showed off a bit. Isn't it natural? The boss pinched my face. I like Secretary Xiaoling's confidence the most. After that, Wesley stopped sending me messages. There wasn't even a chance encounter anymore. Ling Ling. Your appetite has been very poor recently. Your complexion is also a bit pale. Is it your period? A colleague gasped with concern. I was stunned. I haven't had my period for 2 months. Your period has always been very regular. Could it be? She lowered her voice and asked, Are you pregnant? I firmly said, Impossible. Under the situation of using consecutive preventive measures. If there was still a child, it would have to be a super baby. Right? I had been feeling unwell for several days. I still went to the hospital for a checkup on the weekend. The doctor asked many questions, including whether I had sexual intercourse. I had it 3 months ago. I quickly explained, but all precautions were taken. I also took medicine. The doctor's eyes were a bit strange from the beginning. If I didn't feel that there was no malice, I would have wanted to complain about him. Wait for the test results. When the test results came out, the doctor looked at me with a smile. You are pregnant. He thought of me saying that precautions were taken and I took medicine. Seeing that I obviously didn't want the child, his expression became complicated and he tentatively asked, This child. Do you want it? This was such a huge shock. My mind went blank and I was directly stunned. Holding the test sheet, I walked away in a daze. I'll think about it. The doctor specially reminded, Your pregnancy is going very well. Having an abortion will also cause irreversible serious harm to your body. I stayed at home and thought repeatedly. Should I tell Wesley? That day, my vanity couldn't confirm that Wesley liked me. Wesley's being in a daze might just be that his male dignity was challenged by me. Would Wesley want this child to be born? No. I'm not sure if I want to marry Wesley either. He is excellent in all aspects. But with that kind of personality, I don't like it very much. Wesley's genes are really good. It can be seen that he is not only highly intelligent, handsome and tall, but also very healthy. Then this child must be very good if born. Mom. When in doubt, call Mom. In a rush, omitting who Wesley was, I told my mom, I think this child can be kept. My mom was silent for a long time. She didn't scold me and threw out a few questions. How handsome is the father of this academic god's child? How tall is he? Super. Very. My mom was much more decisive than me. Give birth. Your dad and I will pack up today and move in with you tomorrow. Mom. I love you. I am a secretary. Unlike other employees, I can still work even when I am 6 months pregnant. I can't accompany the boss to social events with a big belly. Right? I told the boss. The boss circled around me several times. Oh my God. It's so sudden. Your man is in good health. She waved her hand generously, after showing pregnancy. Leave social events and business trips to others. Do some simpler tasks before taking maternity leave. After all, I am also a celebrity in the company. Being beautiful and efficient has spread outside the company. A colleague sighed. Lynn. Did you hear that? She exaggerated said, the sound of countless men's hearts breaking. Although it was exaggerated, it was also true. I received countless complicated looks and congratulations. After work, my dad came to pick me up in person. Dear daughter, Dad will be a few minutes late. Find a store. Have some milk tea and something to eat and wait for Dad. It was only a few minutes, so I just stood and waited. Wesley arrived earlier than my dad. His extremely expensive car stopped in front of me. He lowered the car window and his eyes fell on my abdomen. He was wearing sunglasses, so I couldn't see his expression clearly. His tone was quite indifferent as he asked me, Will you get married before showing pregnancy? Why are you concerned about this? I was unkind. I can't possibly invite you to my wedding. If the child's father is not Wesley, I invite Wesley, who I slept with, to my wedding. How dissatisfied would I have to be with my husband? He took off his sunglasses and his eyes were red with anger. Which wild man was it? Shortly before or after me? Dear daughter. Get in the car. I was afraid that my dad would ask who Wesley was. So I quickly got in the car. As a result, my dad still asked, "Were you talking to the car owner in front?" I made up a lie randomly, just a person who tried to pick me up. Dad said seriously, "Men are all very good at lying. Dear daughter. You have been cheated once. You must be extremely vigilant against all men. This rich car owner is a lecherous dog, who is only interested in your looks. He is the worst. Do you like luxury bags? Dad earns a lot. Just ask Dad if you want one. Don't let others buy it for you. Thank you. Dad." I rubbed against my dad's shoulder to express my love. Just a little guilty. It's your dear daughter who is lying. But Wesley reminded me. I am already pregnant, but don't hurry to hold a wedding. It will make many people suspect. So when someone asked me again, I told them, well, there was a big conflict when the two families were discussing marriage. That man is not a good person. We have already broken up. Can't I raise a child alone? Someone persuaded. Imagination is beautiful. But reality is cruel. If word of your unmarried pregnancy spreads, how will your parents live? How will you get married in the future? You can't bear the rumors. Rumors. Whoever says something, I'll scold them back. So soon no one came to ask questions anymore. Wesley didn't know what was wrong with him. After knowing that I broke up with my boyfriend, he frequently appeared in front of me. "Lynn, your taste is really bad." "Wesley, why are you ridiculing my taste?" He opened his mouth to explain. "I'm not ridiculing you." I sneered. "If it's not ridicule, what is it?" Asking around. "Do you want to raise the child of a wild man?" Wesley actually didn't say anything. I looked at him in shock. Wesley turned his head away, and seemed a little embarrassed. "Tell me, who is the third party between me and him?" "Damn it. Anyway, the time difference is not much. What's the point of telling you the answer? In comparison, I was probably rather aggressive. So what if you are the third party? What if he is later than you?" Before I turned to leave, Wesley said, "I used all the resources and connections I could to investigate. But there was no result." My heart suddenly tightened. Wesley continued, "I thought that after that night, we were in a relationship. If that person came later, I don't blame you for cuckolding me. You met a bad person. That person will pay the price." In a relationship? I turned around abruptly. In whose relationship is it like that when chatting? During those 2 months on business trip, Wesley sent me messages repeatedly in a rather strange way. But those messages were so cold that no one could tell it was during a relationship. I haven't learned sweet talk yet. Damn. When you show this pitiful look, wouldn't I have to feel extremely guilty and toss and turn at night unable to sleep? In order to firmly avoid internal conflict, I put the blame on him. "You can do well in studying. Why can't you do well in relationships?" After arguing for a long time, Wesley suddenly grasped the key point. "So I was before, right? What before and after?" "There is only him," I said coldly. "Yes. I thought you were not good at talking and had no charm. So I found someone else." Wesley said in a low voice, "I'm only not good at talking. I'm much better than that person. Right? You broke up when discussing marriage. I won't have an accident when discussing marriage." He was even comparing. I deliberately made things difficult. After marriage, my parents-in-law can't disturb me. I have to be busy with work. Taking care of the child is all up to you. Wesley, just an. Wesley immediately added, "Listen to you. I can be less busy at work." In a muddled way, I got together with Wesley. There was a sense of mischief and also other intentions. Wesley's reaction really shocked me. Could it be that he developed feelings after sleeping together? It seemed that he really liked me. Wesley was direct and eager. He was like the one who was pregnant. He asked if it was okay to meet the parents this weekend. "No. You haven't passed my test yet." Wesley was good in all aspects except his temper didn't quite suit me. If he didn't change, I would have to change. And I wouldn't change either. If the two of us quarreled every few days in the future, sooner or later I would end up abusing him. Wesley stared at me intently. Lynn, don't play with me. Look, you don't even have this much patience. Wesley was speechless. It's you. Huh? Under my pressing gaze, he shut up. After a while, he asked again, have you had regular prenatal checkups? Not yet. Wesley naturally wanted to accompany me. I made an excuse to my parents that a colleague was going the same way and went together. Wesley patiently and earnestly asked and consulted the doctor and took notes. The doctor glanced at Wesley and said, quite qualified. Beauty. You have good taste. The physical examination results were very good. The child in my belly was very well behaved and rarely made me uncomfortable. It was just that my tastes were particularly changeable. Many things couldn't be delivered by takeout. I frequently asked Wesley to buy them. And I was especially melodramatic. You don't need to ask others. You are the child's father. Only if you buy it personally can I eat it. From Wesley's perspective, he was just a stepfather. Hearing this sentence, he wasn't annoyed either. His temper was particularly good. Recently, it rained frequently, and he often came running in a hurry in the wind and rain. The colleagues couldn't understand, why is Wesley from next door so attentive to our Lynn? Could the child be his? Didn't Lynn say that she broke up with the child's father? Cut. You believe a girl's words? When I had conflicts with my partner, I even said he was dead. So the colleagues quickly accepted that what I said before was out of anger. Originally it was a lie. So there was no explanation. After Wesley bought it, I couldn't eat much. And I couldn't waste it. So it all went into Wesley's stomach. He was like an old cadre. Usually, his taste was very light and healthy. He tried to keep a straight face. But many times he couldn't hold it. In the early stage, he was very unaccustomed. His immediate superior came to me personally and said, "Oh, beautiful Miss Zhuang. Our brother Wei has a weak stomach. He can't stand being tossed around. Can you give me anything you can't finish?" My boss poked her head out. Full of contempt, it's fun to see Wesley unable to be aloof. Giving it to you, a pig who eats everything delicious, is just a waste for a dog. Sister, what you said is not interesting. I am neither a pig nor a dog. Yes, worse than a pig or a dog. After a few months, I started my maternity leave. Lynn, considering our future relationship, I should at least pass the test of uncle and aunt first. Wesley mentioned it more than once. This time it was really impossible to be perfunctory. He called me. Seriously, calling my name was quite intimidating. Are you not sure how to introduce my identity to uncle and aunt? When it came to my parents, there was no way to lie. Wesley's identity couldn't be hidden anymore. Just follow what your colleague said. As long as that thing in your belly, the child is always hidden from everyone, and I am the biological father. His tone was rather impatient. But he was yielding everywhere. I suppressed a smile. Well, then, it's wronged you. Wesley was good at taking advantage. If you know I'm wronged, then play with me less. I went to persuade my mom first. Mom knew what had happened and was excited. Such a fun thing. Let mom join in. Ling Ling. Tell me, how should mom act better at that time? I touched my nose. Mom, dad's test has to be passed first. Leave it to me. Mom fluttered like a butterfly, adjusted her shawl, and went to find Lao Zhuang. On the day Wesley visited, his hands were full and he was very observant. My dad knew the truth and his mood was very complicated. He was angry that Wesley had messed around with me like a bad guy. But he couldn't scold him righteously. So he had to play along with this honest person who seemed like a bad guy with me. My mom's excessive enthusiasm made Wesley doubt his life. When he left, he said softly, "I originally wanted to ask you for a paternity test. Now I don't doubt it anymore. at the prospective in-laws. He was definitely taken advantage of. I pretended to be angry. You were willing and took the initiative to come to me. Don't be wronged. After passing my parents' test, Wesley visited frequently. He often sent food and supplies. During his holidays, he stayed from morning till night and took over the kitchen. My mom pulled me aside and asked in a low voice, "This Xiao Wei is really good." I thought she was going to persuade me not to play with Wesley anymore. My mom doubted. There won't be anything wrong with Xiao Wei's body. Right? Right. We are mother and daughter. I had also doubted this. So my boss asked Wesley's superior for a copy of Wesley's recent physical examination report. My boss repeated, "That guy sold Wesley so decisively. And he had the tone of a pimp. Our brother Ray's body is extremely good. Even a high school boy is not as healthy as him. His internal organs are so beautiful that the doctor is looking at him with envy." As the due date approached, I began to feel fear. Big data made me see countless tragic cases of pregnant women during childbirth and postpartum, and even many cases of death, originally dominated by estrogen. I couldn't control myself and always cried. Mom noticed it first. She held me and gently said to me, "Ling Ling, when Mom first knew that you were pregnant before marriage, she really wanted to lecture you. But she held back. Mom knows that the unpleasant words from relatives are the most hurtful. Ling Ling, except for death, you don't have to be afraid of anything else. Even in the extremely unlikely event of death. I think what you are more worried about is me and your dad. Don't worry. Your dad and I can bear it. If I have stretch marks, urinary incontinence, gain weight, and become ugly in the future, you must not be even a little disgusted with me." This kind of nonsense. I didn't mention a word to Wesley, because I had my parents standing behind and beside me. Before the due date, the parents of both sides finally met. Wesley told his parents that he was the biological father of the child. His parents' attitude was especially good. Unlike when they were outside, they were not so imposing. "Wesley is such a jerk. Don't worry, dear in-laws. This is the only time he will be a jerk in his life. If he dares to do it again, his dad and I will take care of him." Even though everything was prepared in the best way for me, it still hurt so much that I vowed to make Wesley get a vasectomy. Hearing this, Wesley immediately said, "I had a vasectomy 3 months ago." A nurse beside nodded. "It was done in our hospital." "Really? I gave birth to a little girl." My dad was so happy that he wouldn't let others hold her. "She looks like Ling Ling. She is much chubbier than Ling Ling. When Ling Ling was just born, she was as soft and small as a kitten. I was afraid she wouldn't survive." I didn't like the hospital. After being discharged, Wesley directly brought his luggage and came to my house. "Since you don't want to go to my place, I can only come here." His reason was hard for me to refuse. "If I don't come, my parents will beat me into the hospital and make me a real invalid. Although uncle and aunt are in good health, they are not as young as me after all." The daughter just born still needed to be breastfed for a while, which was also better for my body. I got up frequently at night and always needed to ask for help. Wesley's coming was just right. My house had 3 bedrooms and 1 living room. The small room was where the confinement lady was sleeping. Wesley was at least the child's father. He was prepared to sleep on the floor. I let him get on the bed. "You sleep quietly. Okay. Wesley, as quiet as a corpse. Don't worry." Well, I'm not very relieved. I felt much more at ease asking Wesley for help. There were many people taking care of the child, so I worried less. The only pain was breastfeeding. After the daughter was weaned, it was much more comfortable. I gave my daughter a nickname, Little Gourd. Little Gourd was extremely well behaved. After the redness on her skin faded, she was white and tender. She had long eyelashes, round eyes, and was very cute and chubby. Wesley's mother said, "She looks a bit like Wesley." I lowered my head guiltily and didn't dare to look up. Wesley showed more genuine love for his daughter. after I sent a message to my boss that I could return to work. I always felt that I had forgotten something. Back at the company, the female colleagues' cheers were about to lift the ceiling. Secretary Zhuang is so mature and charming. She was a bit on the thin side before. Now her plumpness is just right. So full of charm. Sister, I love you so much. You are a winner in life. Xiao Xiaowang. Loved by parents. Having a smooth career. And finding a husband who is handsome, successful, and treats you extremely well. Ah, I remembered. I seem to haven't gotten a marriage certificate with Wesley yet. This couldn't be blamed on me. My parents' attention was all on me. Wesley's parents might have thought we had already gotten it. We didn't plan to hold a wedding. Little Gord hadn't been registered for household registration. Now I didn't need my dad to pick me up from work. I went back with Wesley. Wesley, I have something to tell you. Wesley's hand holding the steering wheel tightened, scared by my serious tone. Little Gord has my surname. Wesley nodded. I continued. Well, your test has passed. Let's find a time to get the certificate. It's still in time today. Wesley stepped on the accelerator. After a few phone calls, we got the certificate just before the Civil Affairs Bureau closed. At lightning speed. I was amused before I had time to be sad. Wesley, when did you start to like me? After thinking carefully, it seemed that he was drugged at the alumni gathering. But he didn't look at anyone else and just stared at me directly. It can't be that I was the most beautiful one in the whole place. Right? There were still several beautiful women at that time. If he didn't have bad intentions, then he was charmed by me. Remembering the first time I heard Wesley's name. It was during the midterm exam in the first year of junior high school. We tied for first place. At that time, the math teacher disdainfully said to me, "It's just that math is still simple now. You are a girl. When it comes to the third year of junior high school and high school, you will definitely not be as good as Wesley in the next class. Boys are naturally good at science. After dividing into liberal arts and sciences, you will be even more unable to catch up." At that time, I was particularly unconvinced and directly retorted to that math teacher, "Just wait and see." That math teacher didn't wait. He was reported and dismissed in the second year of junior high school. With that teacher's words in mind, I was angry with Wesley and had a very low favorability. Usually when we met at speeches and competitions, I directly ignored him. In high school, we were briefly in the same class. When it came to choosing liberal arts or sciences, considering my future plans, I didn't choose science. At that time, I was especially glad that after that teacher was dismissed, it seemed that he went back to his hometown. Otherwise, I would be ridiculed for being cowardly. I would never admit that my overall grades were not as good as Wesley's. He is a learning god who is dedicated to learning. What's wrong with me being smart? I love to have fun. I also learn musical instruments, calligraphy, martial arts, and play chess. He was recommended early and didn't go to college. In the next 1 or 2 years, he was rarely at school. After forgetting about competing with Wesley, I seldom paid attention to him. Oh, do you know what I said to the math teacher in junior high school? Just wait and see? I asked curiously. Wesley's lips curved into a faint smile. I know. I was also waiting to see at that time. After waiting for several years, I still didn't see it. I didn't lose to you. I stubbornly listed our current situations to him. After all, I was also someone who could show off at the alumni gathering. Wesley admitted without any intention of flattering, "You have always been very. You can achieve excellence in various fields. In this regard, I am not as good as you." Wesley's inspection result was excellent, but there was no good opportunity to tell him. I also knew that I had played with him too much. To coax someone, one should look like one is coaxing. After work, I left the child to Wesley to take care of. I went to make some preparations. Well, it was definitely not that I didn't want to take care of the child. When I got home late at night, my parents had already gone to sleep. There was still a warm light on in the living room. Wesley was wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses and typing on the computer. The sound of the door opening woke him up. The moment he looked back at me, suddenly, I understood why so many men wanted a home. I slipped over in my slippers and sat next to Wesley. "Why are you still busy with work so late? Doesn't it affect your efficiency during the day?" Wesley was quite helpless. "It's inspection work that doesn't require much thinking. Anyway, I have to wait for you. If I'm idle, I might as well do something." He put down the computer and leaned over, sniffing the smell on me. Like a little dog. I pushed him away and glared at him. "What are you suspecting?" "Wesley, I just don't have a sense of security." I was so angry that it was fake. According to the made-up story, it was quite reasonable for him not to believe me. I touched the tip of my nose and my momentum weakened. "I have a very important thing to tell you this weekend. Do you have time?" "Wesley, can't you say it now?" he said seriously. "Don't you watch movies?" Many words. If you drag it on and set a time, there will be no chance to say them. Then are we like in a movie? I was almost persuaded by him. Fortunately, I held back. Otherwise, all my preparations would be in vain. "Well, we won't miss the chance." On the weekend, little Gord was taken care of by Grandma and Grandpa. The two elders were very happy playing with their granddaughter. Wesley didn't wear formal clothes. The white shirt still had a bit of the charm of the school grass. Wesley was good-looking, but he really wasn't the school grass elected by us at that time. "You are too dull." At that time, many girls recognized that school grass who was smooth in all aspects. A gentleman and humorous. He won the hearts of many girls. "Did you also vote for him?" Wesley asked. I didn't answer directly. "No matter who I vote for, I won't vote for you." The place I invited Wesley to was a temple where I had burned incense and fulfilled my vow before. There is an abbot here who is good at calculating matters of male-female marriage. I explained to Wesley. Wesley was silent for a while and said, "I only believe that things depend on human effort. You have so little confidence." "Wesley." The abbot looked at our faces and palms and asked about our birth dates. Then he said a bunch of profound words. The general meaning was that destiny and human effort were both indispensable. Wesley might not understand what the first sentence meant, but I trusted the abbot even more. After donating some incense money, we slowly took the cable car down the mountain. As the sun set, the scenery was magnificent. I said to Wesley, little Gord's nickname was almost Gang Z. Wesley couldn't hold back anymore and coughed violently. His face and neck turned red. "What?" I said, a little embarrassed lie. "I've been thinking about it for several months. As soon as I decided to keep this child, I wanted to give him such a nickname. If it were a son, I would have named him Gang Z. Since it's a daughter, I can't give such an ugly name." Wesley looked at me with a complicated expression. "What's the meaning?" I only reminded him with 5 words. "King Kong, little Gord." "Guess." Wesley pondered for a long time. 2/3 of the way on the cable car, he licked his lips and asked incredulously, "Little Gord is yours?" "You idiot." Wesley was directly stunned. I couldn't hold back anymore and said, "Look, you didn't think about this extremely small possibility. You directly suspected that I was a person who had a seamless connection, and was a slag girl without having this thought. It can be imagined how shocked I was. If I were really a slag, little Gord would really firmly believe that she is the child of the person who connected." Wesley was so surprised that he wasn't angry at all. I took this opportunity to put a ring on his hand and said vaguely, "Anyway, you are already mine. I will be responsible for you. I'm not as bad as you think. I really don't know. Since you still like me even though I'm so bad, do you really have some dark thoughts?" Seeing that I didn't have a few good words and started to theorize about conspiracy again, Wesley couldn't put down the ring and touched it. "When I liked you, you weren't a slag girl." "I wasn't originally." Wesley looked at me. "Really?" If there were no child. If he hadn't pursued me so hard. Then it would really be. No, it was you who gave me a flirtatious look first. By the way, what was going on with you that night? After I asked repeatedly, Wesley finally confessed. The truth wasn't as dramatic as in a movie. No one dared to drug Wesley. He was simply sick, with a mild illness. His dad made a big tonic soup. Wesley was a little tipsy at that time. Plus, at the alumni gathering, many alumni were towards me. Wesley was angry and anxious and rushed over recklessly. Who knew I was a pervert? And he didn't want to miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Good for you. Wesley. You are really not honest. I pointed at his shoulder with my finger. Confess honestly. When did you start to like me? Wesley held my finger. As the cable car was about to stop, he said in the noise, I will tell you slowly. Wesley had amazing learning ability. He did very well in taking care of the child, which required patience and was trivial. I wanted to hold little Gord and hug her freely, but the good girl was too small. I was afraid that I might accidentally hurt her. Fortunately, there was a substitute. Wesley smelled of little Gord's milk fragrance. It was very pleasant. Hugging and kissing him could be more unrestrained. Mom and Dad are outside. Wesley leaned against the head of the bed. His slightly raised Adam's apple rolled. Nervously, he reached for my hand. I thought to myself, did we get the script reversed? How come I'm like that female bandit? Thinking deeper, this person had so many tricks. If he didn't want it, I couldn't do it. I, as he wished, let go of his hand and stayed half a meter away from him. Wesley's eyes flashed with dissatisfaction. Oh, our Wesley is still a flirt? I don't understand. He said seriously. I almost believed him. If I hadn't seen his search history on his phone. All of them were, what's the degree of chasing a girl? What does flirt mean? How to implement being a flirt? Seeing that he had been replying to the poster and asking for advice. The poster taught very carefully. The latest reply was that Wesley said, thank you. Poster. It seems to have some effect. Little Gord looked more like me. After she could run, she started to be naughty. Her little person had a full schedule. After going to kindergarten, she had a long string of friends behind her. The children's jealousy caused many jokes. Little Gord came home and said unhappily, Mom. They said why don't I have 6 sisters? Feft. 7 Gord babies on one vine. Just as I was about to comfort little Gord. Little Gord said distressed lie. If I had 6 sisters, it would be so cool. Well, keep this optimistic attitude. Wesley pushed up his glasses and said, this is impossible. Your mother and I only gave birth to 1 Gord. Little Gord hugged my waist and giggled. I was just joking. I don't want sisters to share Mom and Dad's love with me. Little Gord could sleep independently. After Wesley and I took a bath after some, we lay on the bed. Before falling asleep in a daze, I remembered Wesley's intermittent story about our story from his perspective extra chapter in the afternoon. The math teacher came in and said gently to me, little she, just calm down. Junior high school grades don't mean anything. What if Lynn next door is tied with you now? Girls are naturally not as good as boys. I didn't like this teacher. He always treated people differently. Even though I was the one who was favored. I had seen Lynn next door. She was a very smart girl with a good personality. Teacher. I raised my head and said, she won't be worse than me. That teacher's face was especially ugly. I couldn't help but pay attention to what would happen to Lynn in the future. She seemed to take me as an enemy because of that teacher's words. Forget it. Pressure is also motivation. Right? At the beginning of high school, we were in the same class. After a summer vacation, a little girl who was still a bit childish had grown a lot. There were many people around her. I thought we would be in the same class in the future, and didn't rush to talk to her. However, after a while, she chose liberal arts. Since we wouldn't be together often, there was no need to talk to her. Plus, we were both busy. until after we both entered society. The first time I saw her, the spark from my youth instantly became a wildfire. I had told that teacher that Lynn wouldn't be worse than me. She was good at speaking and acting. She was kind but had boundaries. She was optimistic and motivated. She was very excellent in herself. In many aspects, she was much better than me. So the title of Big Shot, that I was praised and chased after, seemed a bit ironic. Things reversed. When she was young, she wanted to compete with me. Now I can't help but compare with her. What is very different is that I have a slight inferiority complex. As a result, every little thing is analyzed deeply by me. Comparing our respective pursuers, the people who pursue me are attracted by my appearance and ignore my personality. They live for the moment. And the people who like Lynn want to spend their lives with her. I didn't want to go to the class reunion at first. Lynn would go. She was chatting and laughing among the crowd. I almost crushed the cup. After that despicable night, I couldn't control myself and made her take medicine. The side effects of that medicine were very strong. Soon I regretted it, and watched her lead secretly like a mouse in a gutter. I told my aunt to make more tonic soups recently. I wanted to bring them to Lynn. It could make up for a little bit. After all, it was my fault. However, Lynn went on a business trip. I searched for many ways to chase someone, but they were all a bit greasy. I might not be able to pretend for a lifetime. However, Lynn dealt with me perfunctorily. It was because I still didn't know how to talk. After learning, and making some progress, Lynn came back. At the same time, she brought a bad news. She had a boyfriend. Even worse news. She was pregnant. I also hoped that the child was mine. But that was obviously impossible. With such a small chance, dozens of sows would have climbed trees already. Whether I was the one who was sewn up or the one who connected, I wasn't angry. I was just sad that I didn't seize the opportunity. Fortunately, an opportunity came. She broke up with her boyfriend. The balance kept tilting. My heart was all on Lynn's side. Raising a child who wasn't of my blood didn't seem completely unacceptable. As long as the child was Lynn's, it would be fine. The child was very cute and looked like Lynn. That bit of dislike also faded a lot. Just take it as the punishment for not seizing the opportunity. I accept it. Later, Lynn told me that little gourd was an existence even more unbelievable than dozens of sows climbing trees. That little regret that I didn't care about was also filled. Wesley, who does little gourd look more like between us? How could we give birth to a daughter whose total score in 5 subjects is not more than 200? I'm so angry. I don't care anymore. You tutor her. Accompanied by little gourd's skilled coaxing voice. Mom, don't be angry. It's not good for your health. I'm coming. For things that are not good for the body, leave it to me.